Very good evening, friends. This Sunday evening, an important geopolitical event is panning out across the Himalayas in Beijing, with the 20th session of the National Congress of the Chinese Communist Party starting today. While this would go on for the next 7 days and see Xi Jinping get the expected third term as the boss of the party and hence president of China early next year. His comments during the plenary have set the agenda for the world geostrategic community to ponder on. Jinping has underscored the use of force as a tool to deal with any dissent from Taiwan. Should India be concerned? And if yes, how much? Let's look at this report and then come back to discuss.
All eyes were on Xi Jinping's address at the 20th National Congress in Beijing, and his statement on Taiwan has raised concern across the globe.
解决台湾问题是中国人自己的事，要由中国人来决定。我们坚持以最大诚意、尽最大努力，争取和平统一的前景，但绝不承诺放弃使用武力，保留采取一切必要措施的选项。
In the same breath, Xi had also made a Hong Kong comparison to Taiwan.
面对香港局势动荡变化，我们依照宪法和基本法，有效实施对特别行政区的全面管制权，落实爱国者治港原则，香港局势实现由乱到治的重大转折。
This statement is seen as a warning to the United States of America, especially in the light of US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan in August this year.
坚定不移贯彻一国两制、港人治港、澳人治澳、高度自治的方针，坚持依法治港治澳，落实中央全面管制权，落实爱国者治港、爱国者治澳原则。
Comparison would have been puerile, but for the manner in which China has stamped out dissent and clamped down on protests in Hong Kong over the last couple of years. What Jinping perhaps meant was that, like in the case of Hong Kong, so in the case of Taiwan, the Chinese state would deal with the kind of brutality it has so perfected.
Shortly after Xi Jinping's statement, Taiwan responded by saying that it will never compromise on the values of sovereignty, democracy and freedom. Over the last 8 months, China has indicated at using force to capture Taiwan, with military drills and back-to-back warnings. And with Xi Jinping's latest statement at the 20th National Congress, where he is likely to get the third term, the world is closely watching the dragon's move. Bureau Report, Republic TV.
All right, lots of thoughts on our minds. Would China get more aggressive post the National Congress? Are we going to see even more of wolf warrior diplomacy? And joining me to discuss this this evening, Professor Shrikant Kondapalli. He joins me live from Delhi, writer and professor of Chinese Studies at the JNU. Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow from the ORF, live from Delhi. Always a pleasure engaging with him. And Dr. Roger Liu, Head of the Social Sciences Department at Flame University in Pune. He's live from Pune, but of course with tremendous amount of Taiwan background. If I could begin with you, Professor Liu, should Taiwan really buy peace, the kind of threat Xi Jinping has given today?
Thank you for having me here. I would like to say that, well, if you have done some textual analysis comparing what he has said in the previous time, actually, this has not changed very much. So we should not focus on the words itself. But what we are seeing is that China has actually prepared for some kind of military invasions in the past few years, and that has raised the brows of other powers in this region, including Taiwan itself. So, well, our guess is that, well, they will still keep using tactics like United Front by getting the support from the military, the business people inside of the island to push for the peaceful reunification. But at the same time, they are preparing themselves now militarily, completely. So, why I just returned from Taiwan a week ago, and I had a meeting with some leaders, academic leaders and policy makers in this region, and a lot of them have prepared to do that. They have recognized that a military threat is very imminent, and in the future, especially between 2024 to 2027, this is the between the 3 years, it's very likely that we will see this kind of things happening. So I think this is a real threat that not only Taiwan, Japan, the United States, but India also need to take a heed of.
Yeah. All right. Sushant, Professor Liu believes that the threat is real and military action could be imminent. How soon you think China could be invading Taiwan? And in that case, what should be India's position?
No, I agree with what the professor is saying, that the threat is imminent. It has always been there. I think a lot will depend upon the Chinese capability and the blowback that will come if the Chinese were to take or indulge in such an adventurism. I think a lot will depend on that. It will depend on how well prepared the Taiwanese are to fend off the first initial attack, how much the rest of the world is going to be standing on Taiwan's back, and then, of course, what are going to be the repercussions for not just China, but also the rest of the world, because whether the Chinese like it or not, Taiwan is a technological powerhouse. A lot of international industry depends upon Taiwan. And in fact, in some ways, if the Chinese were to take any action in Taiwan, its repercussions would be found around the world. So I think all of those factors will weigh with the Chinese leadership. My own sense is, and I'm daring to speak in front of Professor Kondapalli, who is somebody we learn from, whose writings. But my own sense is that while Xi Jinping will get his third term, I think he's reached the heights of his power, and from here it's only going to be he's going to start losing power. Now, how that works out, we'll have to see.
Yeah. So, Sushant, I'll go to Professor Kondapalli on that note. Professor, Sushant says that Xi Jinping might be at the pinnacle of his power and might start losing power now. But, he's 69 years old. He has been president for 10 years already. And the manner in which he has carried out the purges in the PLA, in the Communist Party, across the hierarchy, along the verticals, you think he might not be peaking as yet. And Taiwan sort of has been the dream for Xi Jinping for last some years, and that he would make sure that before he actually peaks in his power, he takes Taiwan.
Well, in the previous Congress, 19-party Congress, Xi Jinping had preponed the 2049 estimates of creating a socialist modernized society till 2035. And that led to speculation that he will be around till 2030. So there is also that possibility that he may, with this third term, possibly he would look for a life term for the General Secretary position. The President position has been extended in March 2018. And so on this issue of whether Xi Jinping will get an extension or not is relative power balance within the Communist Party. On the issue of Taiwan, in the 19-party Congress, there was a mention of 6 no's. And in the 100th anniversary of the Communist Party of China last July, Xi Jinping used the words that he will break the heads of anyone who is promoting Taiwan independence. So very harsh words here on Taiwan. And we have seen also during the Nancy Pelosi's visit and after the PLA exercises in 6 areas close to Taiwan. So this is one which Communist Party leaders keep mentioning. Jiang Zemin mentioned this during the 2004 white paper issued in that time. He, for instance, said, "We will not allow the Taiwan drift towards independence sine die." And Hu Jintao's term also had similar. When we go back to Mao Zedong waged wars on Chinman, on Tumshan Islands, on various others. So this has been a tradition within the Communist Party to, pitch the high decibels on Taiwan. Technically, they have this problem that in 1894, when the Japanese defeated China, Li Hongzhang gave up Korean Peninsula and Taiwan to Japan. And so there is this stigma for the Communist Party leaders that they should not be called as a next Li Hongzhang for giving up Taiwan. So this is a kind of historical stigma that is attached to the policies of China on Taiwan. Of course, for the most part, Taiwan has been independent. They have their own president, they have their own armed forces, they have their own economy. They're a member of the WTO, they're a member of so many other international organizations. They have their own.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but we have to also. I'm really sorry I'm interrupting you, sir, but because we are short of time, we have about 15-20 minutes. We have to understand what are the implications going to be for rest of the world, particularly for India. Sushant Sareen, if I could come back to you. Taiwan, whatever China is doing is a stated policy. But how would India need to really recalibrate? Professor Liu is saying that the war is imminent, we are preparing, we would seek support from the world. In that case, what should be India's position?
Look, I don't speak for the government like none of us do out here. But I'm very clear that the kind of aggressiveness...
As a strategic affairs expert, Sushant.
Yeah, purely as that, I'm very clear in my mind that the kind of aggression that the Chinese are showing towards smaller neighbors, forget Taiwan, forget India, they're even doing it with Bhutan, and I think you have to confront the bully. I've sensed a certain amount of diffidence on India's part to get into some kind of military arrangements, military, alliances. But maybe that's the road forward, because given the kind of power that the Chinese are accumulating, it becomes very difficult for a single country to take on the Chinese. And maybe a concert of democracies in the region might be better placed to confront the Chinese, at least keep them at bay. Now, I believe that if the Chinese are not doing anything in Taiwan, apart from, flexing their muscle, it is because of a lack of capability and because they fear the repercussions and consequences. But the day those considerations are not going to be there, you will see the Chinese attack the Taiwanese. The same is going to happen with us. So yes, we have to prepare ourselves, we have to prepare our own military muscle, but we also have to tie up with other nations in the world to try and keep the Chinese at bay, contain the Chinese.
Yeah, Professor Kondapalli, I'll come back to you quickly for your another minute of comments. Sushant Sareen says that we have to confront the bully, we have to get in touch with others and coordinate our actions. But I have seen, Professor Kondapalli, two things. One, that India, at least in the last decade, has not mentioned one nation, two systems principle which the Chinese really want us to speak and be vocal about. We have not done that. We have not obliged the Chinese. Also, of late, I am seeing in the last 6 months, for whatever I can, monitor the Chinese media, they are really soft on India. Last 6 months. Yesterday, Global Times had an edit praising Dr. S. Jaishankar. What's happening on that front? How do we confront a bully who's sort of trying to soften its position vis-a-vis us?
Well, in the speech by Xi Jinping, 73 times the word safety, security has been mentioned, which indicates for the first time, and it is reported that a separate section on national security will be mentioned for the first time in a work report by the General Secretary. This suggests, of course, in conjunction with the emphasis on PLA
Right, sir.
modernization, this suggests to the getting back to the security state syndrome within China, number one. Number two, there is also the Chang Haching, who participated in Galwan. There are a lot of videos that are being circulated in the mainstream media within China that suggests that they are not going to give up. And in fact, Xi Jinping's speech also included core interests that he is not going to give up. So I do not think there is any change in Global Times or the Communist Party's view on Galwan.
Yeah.
And Global Times is misleading because when they are facing flack from the Americans on the semiconductor industry and on the tariff wars, and of course during the Ukrainian conflict, when they're facing the flack from the Americans, they approach India on the multipolarity debate in BRICS, SEO, and other things. So this is a kind of lollipop that the Global Times gives you. Don't fall prey to that. Focus on whether they have removed the troops from all friction points in Galwan. That's a basic point. Whether they are praising Dr. Jaishankar or not is immaterial. But what is important is, as Raksha Mantri, the defense minister, said in February last year, they have to vacate in all friction points, period.
Yes. Very well said, sir. This is classic Chinese deception because they obviously don't want two-front, wars happening or two-front aggression happening, I believe. Last word to Professor Liu. Professor Liu, you said that, you would want support from rest of the world. What kind of support you are expecting? The Americans are obviously giving you weapons, of course, for money. But what else, what other kind of support are you expecting from the rest of the world, particularly India?
Especially, we hope that all the democracies should unify to work together to recognize the real threat that China has been imposing to us. All together, we have to form our own united front. Well, like Professor Kondapalli has been saying, that what China has been doing is to form a united front along with India on different issues. But now, as democracies, we should recognize that we are together. And what India can do is that I think India can express its interest in this region, not only South China Sea, but also India should extend its concerns and interest to the Taiwan Strait. So when something happens, India should step in and either use military or diplomatic supports to extend its power to this region, because India have to understand, if Taiwan was attacked, next will be India, because the Chinese is trying to show this to India that you cannot fight us, because if we can take Taiwan, we can also do the same thing to you. So I think India should recognize the strategic importance of the Taiwan Strait.
All right, Professor. According to Professor Liu, if Taiwan is now, India could be next. Of course, everyone is watching. I have only this much time, unfortunately, this Sunday evening. Thank you so much, Professor Kondapalli, Sushant Sareen, and Professor Liu for joining us in this broadcast. Xi Jinping's use of force threat against Taiwan would echo with the global strategic community for some time. This is not the first time he has said this, but the occasion, the 20th National Congress, in which Jinping is renewing and rejuvenating his leadership, means the threat could be real. India, like the rest of the world, needs to recalibrate dealing with the bull in the China shop, as we could be next in the Thucydides trap. We would closely watch the Beijing developments over the next week and keep you abreast. Keep watching. Now over to a breaking news development coming in.